Good morning. This is Robert Goodman here on Positive Strokes, staying clean. And I'm so happy that you're a part of my recovery. I'm so happy that you're here. And today we're going to talk about don't be so hard on yourself. In my active addiction, when I was doing all the most and doing all these bad things and hurting myself and others and finding these ways to get more and more and more and more and more and living that life. And then I got into recovery and I seen all this bad things that I did, and it was connected to my addiction and how my addiction controlled my life. So as I was looking at myself and my recovery, I was seeing how bad I was and I wasn't liking myself. And the same type of behavior that I had in my addiction of punishing myself for the actions that I was doing because of where I was at and how I got there, I started punishing myself on a regular basis. I take 10 steps forward and I would not 5 back because I felt that everything that happened to me in life was all my fault. It was nobody else's, it was mine. And that's an untrue statement. And as recovery taught me is to look at myself honestly and openly, and I had to look at what part I played in the situation. What was my truth, my actions. And when I looked at it with a clear mind, I wasn't high. I was realizing exactly what part I truly did play in each situation, decision that I made in my active addiction. And when I did that, I understood who the hell Robert was and why he did the things that he did and why he medicated himself. How is this important? It's very important. Why? Because if you understand the mistakes that you made and the reason why you made them, then you won't make those same mistakes again. Because you're understanding yourself and your actions. And so now that I'm in recovery and I have time in recovery, when I make a bad decision, the old mind may creep up and want to do the same things that I did in my active addiction. See, just because I'm clean and sober doesn't mean that the old behaviors don't come into play. But recovery teaches me to pay close attention to Robert, his actions and the way he thinks and the way he does things. And by him doing that, by me doing that, by him doing that, by me doing that, my life is good. So the point I'm trying to make this morning is that don't be so hard on yourself. In your defense, number one is you are imperfect. Everybody's imperfect. That's why in the Bible it says, you without sin cast the first stone. Meaning that how can you put someone else's down for their mistakes when you make mistakes? Or also in the Bible it says, if you judge a person, then you'll be judged by the same measure you judge somebody else. So the way you look and treat another human being will determine how you'll be treated in the same manner. So if you disrespect, hurt, and harm someone else, then your situation will end up in the same type of situation that they're in, and you'll be treated just like you was. That's a powerful thing to happen. And since me personally, I believe that a power greater than myself restored me to sanity, that I believe that God did that I believe in God, then those scriptures and that information holds weight with me. So I don't judge another human being for their actions. That's not my job. My job is to help another person find their way in recovery and to live their own best life in the choices that they make, and trying to get people to make the right choices for themselves, to look at themselves honestly and openly, to look with a clear mind, not a medicated mind, not an influenced mind, but for them to look at their situation, come to a conclusion themselves that this is the direction that they need to go for themselves. And I realized that I didn't get well in my recovery until I made a decision to change my life, my direction. And recovery taught me I cannot change people, places, or things. I can't change people, places, or things, but I can change Robert. So if I can't change people, places, and things, I need to pay attention to myself. Well, how about those other people? Well, all I can do is be an example. This is what works for Robert. This is how Robert stayed clean and sober. I hope you take some of the information that I'm giving and put it in your playbook and find out what works for you and how you can make your life better. I can't tell you how to make your life better because I don't know what goes on in your mind. I have not walked 1,000 miles in your shoes, meaning that I didn't live through the trauma and pain that you've experienced and the way you experienced it. I only lived through my trauma, my pain. And in my recovery, I had to find my way. And the blessing is when you find your way, you stay clean and sober. But if you try to follow somebody else's path to the letter, you're gonna fail because it's not yours. It's somebody else's. It's not rooted in you. When you find your way and what works for you, those are the people that stay clean and sober. But those who follow a person's their person's path and not theirs, if that person fails, then what happens? You hear in the program of recovery that you buy 2 suits, one for funerals and one for weddings. And they say that you're going to go to more funerals than you do weddings because people lose in addiction. There's more people that die of overdose than there are people that stay clean and sober. Why is that? Because people have to find their own way, what works for them in their recovery. And they have to do the work on themselves so they can get the benefit from that recovery. What works for me may not work for you, but the information that you learn from me will cause you not to fall victim to going down that rabbit hole again. When I share how I failed, when I share what works for me, then you have an idea what you can do for yourself. Then you can make the proper choices to live clean and sober and do what you need to do to stay clean and sober. Some people do a 12-step program and they stay clean and sober until they die. Some people have an alternative program and they stay clean and sober until they die. It's not my position or place to judge another person's program. As long as the program of recovery is working for them and is staying clean and sober, I have no right to judge another person's recovery. So don't be so hard on yourself. I had to learn the hard way not to be hard on Robert. And the interesting thing that this is something that I have to do on a regular basis. Why? Because the damage that I've done to myself and others, and the lack of connection to loved ones and people that I truly care about, are non-existent. So I live with that separation and that pain that I caused by the choices I made in my past. The pain is still there, but I don't try to medicate myself with the pain. It doesn't hurt as much as it did in my addiction, but it still hurts. And it will always hurt. But I can live it on life's terms. See, I must learn how to accept pain and pleasure. I accept the pain of my mistakes. I accept the pain that life gives me behind the bad choices that I've made. And what I got to do is dust myself off, get up, and change my behavior to make a better decision. Don't be so hard on yourself. Because we're all imperfect people and we all make mistakes. You without sin cast the first stone, meaning you without fault cast the first stone. You act like you've never made a mistake before. So you want to put me down. You want to make me look less than. That does not solve the problem. It just lets a person know how much you do dislike and hate that person. But it doesn't change the fact. Recovery teaches you to live life on life's terms. And when you live life on life's terms, that means that you have to swallow the hard, honest truth of the situation, whether it's in your favor or against your favor. The hard truth that you made a mistake or you didn't make a mistake. And in recovery, you own up to your mistakes and you just change your behavior and do the next right thing. The mistake is not important. It's what we do after the mistake. That's what's important. If we correct our actions and move forward, we become better. When we make a mistake, do we try to fight and want to be right? Do we have to be right? And then if we're wrong, we don't want nobody to know that we're wrong. That's addictive behavior. And that doesn't lead nothing but more pain and more stress on the person that's trying to achieve that, which makes their life difficult. Recovery teaches me to keep life simple, live life on life's terms. That means, Robert, when you make a mistake, you make a mistake. You're not perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Robert, your wife is going to make mistakes. She's not perfect. You're going to make mistakes. So we can't sit up and judge each other like we the police and the judge, and we're going to sentence you to 5 years for making a mistake. We're all imperfect people. We all make mistakes. Some make worse mistakes than others. I made some bad ones, doozies at times. And then there's times when I haven't. But my mistakes and the things that I've done right lets me know who Robert is. And if I keep an open mind about the situation, if I make a mistake, then I change my behavior. But when I realize that I am an imperfect person, and I know everybody's an imperfect person, then when people make mistakes, when they do wrong things, I don't take it so personal. Why? Because they made a mistake. They made a choice. Sometimes we let our feelings and emotions dictate our decisions, which cause us to go down a rabbit hole, and we do not know what's going to happen, but we know it's not going to be good because we're going to have more conflict, more drama, because we're not doing the next right thing. But that's a choice because we're upset, we're mad, we got our feelings hurt, they hurt us, so we want to lash out and give them the same type of hurt or even more hurt. Or you just don't want to associate, you give them the roll of the eyes all the time, or you don't have contact with them. And everybody sees that you do not. And this is the thing, they are living rent free in your head. Because every time you see them, you get a feeling. You get angry, you get mad, you get upset, you draw back to what they did or what you heard or whatever. So that means that you're giving them a whole lot of attention on something that they did, and it probably was a mistake. But you felt that it was directed towards you because the mistake was at you. And the sad thing is, we're all imperfect and we all make mistakes. But the interesting thing is, self-preservation trumps everything. Love, relationship, father, mother, sister, brother, wife, husband, children. Self-preservation. When a person feels that they have to do a certain thing and it's necessary for them to do it, for the function of their life and for their life to live the way they choose to, then they do that regardless of how it feels or affects anybody else, because they feel they need that at all costs. So it's not directed at you. It's a choice a person makes for themselves, for their own well-being, what they think that's good for them. I hope I shared some things with you. Don't be so hard on yourself. We all make mistakes. We all make bad choices. But here's the thing. When you make a mistake, you can undo it by owning up to it and changing your behavior. When you own up to your wrong, that's where your power's at. That's where you stand strong. Because you stand on principles. You're standing on principles. You're standing on your belief to do the right thing. And nobody can say anything against you. They may, but it won't carry no weight because you own up to who you are and what you've done, and you've changed your behavior. So if they want to talk about it from 1999 to 2027, that's on them. You continue to move forward in your recovery. You continue to make better choices. You can continue to learn from your mistakes. You continue to be who you are. And if they want to live that situation rent-free in their head for the rest of their lives, that's their choice. That's their way. But I choose not to allow myself to suffer, because I suffered for 40 years, and the things that happened to me lived rent-free in my head and would persecute me regularly, which caused me to medicate myself so I would not feel that pain. And I choose not to send myself through that vicious cycle that lasted for 40 years. And I don't want you to go through that like I had. So if you made a mistake, you made a mistake. Own up to it, change your behavior, and do the next right thing. And your life will get better. And you learn more about yourself, and you'll make less mistakes. You learn more about yourself and you make less mistakes. And that's what recovery is all about. I hope you reconsider the way you look at things, because it's up to you to do the work on self to live your best life. Nobody else can make your life better unless you make it better. You have a great, wonderful day.